So, hi, I am Marie Levette Caduto, Watershed Planner with the Department of Environmental Conservation. Thank you for showing up tonight. I appreciate it. And thanks, Jim, for coming in online. Since we are a small crowd, I'll kind of go through the presentation. If you have a question on any particular slide, just go ahead and ask. And you are all reasonably familiar with this process, so I'll go through it quickly so we don't have to be here all night. So this is for the Deerfield River. And so basically what we try to do in these plans is we're looking at what the condition of the water quality and the habitat, the aquatic habitat is on the Deerfield and extended rivers. We're looking at what we can do to improve conditions in water quality and the habitat. We want to identify how we want to use our rivers. So management goals are our classes of waters. We have several different classes, which I'll talk about. What do we want to use our waters for? We want them safe for swimming. Do we want them for industrial use? You know, these are our management goals, how we manage our waters to reflect the uses we make of them. What do we do about it? What are the strategies, practices, implementation steps we want to take to make those improvements in the watershed? And who do we want to play with? Basically, who are our partners? And where do we find the money to do it? So that's what the plan kind of goes through, these different things to identify what we're going to be doing over the next 5 years. And this is a 5-year process, right? So we start the first year with the scientists going out and doing the monitoring work, rivers, lakes, streams, wetlands, and they do all the science part. Then the computer guys take it and they analyze that data. They figure out what it's telling us. And then the planners come in and we take that information and figure out what we need to address on the ground, where we need to make those improvements, what projects and partners we need to be working with to do that. Then we spend 4 years doing it, getting out in the field and implementing those projects. Then we come back around, we evaluate how did we do, what haven't we gotten to, and we begin that cycle all over again. Needless to say, we're at the public participation part. I've drafted the plan, and we bring it to you to see whether or not I got it right. So the schedule is that this is the last public meeting. We had one on Tuesday, and we're having this tonight. The comment period is open until the October 31st at the end of the month. I'll draft that responsiveness summary where I take all the comments and respond to them in writing, which will become an appendix to the plan. And then hopefully the plan will be finalized and signed off on in December, maybe January, depending on the secretary's level of business. So this is the Deerfield Watershed. Oh, here we go again. Can you see that? No.
Yeah.
Oh, you can see my cursor?
Oh.
I have a cursor there. Maybe this, yeah. All right. So I can point, I can reach this. So there, I'm gonna go on the other side. I'm gonna probably unplug something. So the Deerfield River itself, the main stem of the Deerfield starts up in Glastonbury, comes down this way, all the way to Deerfield, Massachusetts. It has several branches to it. This little part, Vermont and New Hampshire, Vermont and Massachusetts. Been a long week. Half is in Vermont, half is in Massachusetts. This and the Vermont side, this is the south branch, the west branch, the east branch, and the north branch of the Deerfield. Yeah, exactly. Why is the north branch east of the east branch? I can't tell you that. This is, the North River is in Massachusetts. In Vermont, we have the East Branch of the North River, then the Green River, and all of those make up the Deerfield Watershed. And then we add into this basin, we add some of the brooks that drain directly to the Connecticut River, which is the Whetstone Brook, Broad Brook. This is the Fall River, and there's several in Vernon, like Newton Brook, and a couple of others. So that was all make up what we call basin 12. Just to get everybody. Here we go. And you can see from the land use map that this is a very highly forested watershed, which is great. I mean, that's certainly our most protective land cover is to have forest that keeps water clean. The red is the developed areas, and you can see, you know, they're where you would expect them to be, around Brattleboro and in Dover and Wilmington, where there's a lot of ski area development. The pale blue, the aqua blue, is wetlands. The blue is water. And as we say, the tan is basically agriculture lands. This is how we display our water quality monitoring information. The circles, the round dots are our biotic community, the bugs in the water, and the ovals are fish communities. So the more green, the cleaner, the more red, the more issues that are going on. You can see for the most part, we're pretty green and yellow, which is good and very good. There are a couple of funky red ones off to the left there, and that's on the fish. That's more ecosystem productivity versus like bad water or habitat. It's what there's a lack of fish nutrient and they don't grow well in those particular real high headwaters. So we don't worry about that. For the most part, we're doing pretty well. We do monitor the north branch of the Deerfield more intensely because ski area development they have to have a lot of permits, whether they're stormwater permits or Act 250 permits, they have a lot of permits that have to be monitored. So you can see there's a little more yellow, but there's not red and orange on this. So, you know, and we work closely with the ski areas on stormwater and water quality issues. We also monitor our lakes and ponds. And this is a blue to red scale. So you can see that there's a good amount of blue in here. The bottom left quadrant is always red or yellow. We are in the stream of air that comes off the Midwest power plants and dumps the acid rain and mercury on southern Vermont. We have the most acid impaired lakes down in southern Vermont across the whole state.
Yeah, I didn't put it on the haystack, but it was acid impaired or not.
I can look it up. I think that's this one, right? No, that's the wrong town. Never mind. So haystacks here. You can't say the number. Oh, would that be 27 or 26 or 26 is in Searsburg. That's going to be the reservoir. So it might be, I can look it up and make sure.
Sorry. I think that's.
Oh, Haystack Pond. No, yeah, it is. It's got some acid impairment. And as that, but it is a well protected and otherwise it's in very nice shape.
Well,
yeah. I can pull up data on it if you're interested afterwards. We have only one lake, which is Sadaga, that has invasive species in it. That's the small red quadrant on number 7. And then we have one, Lake Raponda, which already meets our class 1 water quality criteria. So we'll be working probably with the Lake Raponda Association to put forward a petition to reclassify Lake Raponda as a class 1 watershed.
I'll be looking for money for a particular thing.
You think? We can discuss that. Actually, would you make a note of the potential rehab of the Lake Raponda Dam. Let's put that in. We also monitor our wetlands. This is a little bit different. It's still a green to, thank you.
Each one you call.
Our wetlands also run on a green to red scale. And this is a little bit different. This is not like our bugs and fish and our lakes monitoring, where it's a random sampling of the waters in the region. This is more of a targeted, we haven't been doing wetlands assessment to this detail we've only been doing it for under 10 years, so we don't have as much data, as well as they monitor things that we tend to request them to monitor. Like, this is a great wetland. I think it could be a class 1. Would you go look? Or this is an impacted wetland. We think it might not be in very good shape. Would you go look? So it's not a random sampling, but still, there's mostly green and yellow on here.
So Maureen, we did have a question from online asking, what is a class 1 watershed?
I will get to that in just a minute, if you can hold on just a bit.
Ask the question about the Somerset docks there.
Yep.
Those are beaver ponds that are around Somerset.
Yes. So there's a lot of wetlands through the upper watershed. So these are some beaver, and again, I can look up which ones they are. These are harder to pinpoint, why it's a specific color, but I can look at that data. These are the waters, and this is where I'll talk about it. These are the waters that we know are in really good shape. So the purple areas are waters that we have already classified as A1 for aquatic biota. So we have 4 classes of water. A1 is our best condition, most pristine areas. And we worked with the U.S. Forest Service a number of years ago to reclassify streams in the Green Mountain National Forest. So that's what those purple areas are. So we have B1, we have A1 and we have A2. A2s are drinking water sources, like drinking water reservoirs. So we don't have, we have identified Abu Howe Pond, Haystack Pond, our drinking water sources. So those are A2s, which obviously we're going to manage differently than a pristine water. If it gets contaminated with, bacteria, we're going to treat it, those things. So we manage them differently. We allow them to go down in a drought and come back up when it rains. So it's different. So they're not on here for reclassification. We don't mess with those waters. We have B1s, which are high quality waters, and those are the aqua ones. They're a little hard to see, like 16 and 18 here. The Whetstone Brook, parts of it are double classified there. The East Branch has B1. And so you have an A1 level of quality, then you have a B1, and then you have a B2. And what that does is classification is protection for our waters in perpetuity. So if a water meets the criteria and is an A1 water body, then it cannot be degraded in the future below the criteria for A1. And that does not mean you can't develop or you can't use the land. It means that when you do those projects, you have to do it in a way that will protect the water. So, and that's basically what the agency's permit system does, right? When you get a stormwater permit, you're managing stormwater to protect water quality. When you get an Act 250 permit, you're doing the same thing. So those permits look at applications within A1 waters more critically. Doesn't mean you can't do anything, you just have to do it well. So that we put a B1 in the middle there. So if we have high quality waters, we can protect them from being degraded over time. And B2 is also good water quality. It's still fishable, swimmable, recreational waters. It doesn't mean they're bad waters. It's when they go below the criteria for B2 that a water becomes impaired. And we have to do something to bring it back. So these are levels of protection, so we don't have to do that. We keep our waters clean. The red ones are B1s for fishery, and that's determined by the Department of Fish and Wildlife. So they do their own monitoring of fish populations for recreational fisheries, and they have criteria that they have set for a good recreational fishery. And so all these red ones can also be upgraded to a B1 fishery. And we have partners, Margot included, that are working on some reclassifications now that are in the process of going through, but it's an extensive process because it has to go all the way through the legislature. And we have the other end of the scale of the waters that aren't so good. Those impaired waters, these are the rivers and streams. This doesn't include the acid lakes that are impaired for one reason or another. And the ones that I'm really focusing on in this plan are these three in particular. The bottom right in Vernon is a little brook called Newton Brook that is impaired for the agricultural activity, nutrients and sediment that are reaching the brook. So we'll be working with the agricultural community on that. The 2 and the 8, the lower Whetstone Brook through Brattleboro and some of the north branch of the Deerfield also have high bacteria levels that we want to be working on. The others are like the ones coming out of the reservoirs are flow. And so where we have dams that impacts flow on these waters, it also impacts temperature. There's permits. You have a few permits for doing that. So we monitor them, we keep track of them. It's not something that we can actively address at this time. So they are out there. The biggest thing that we focus on is the Long Island Sound dissolved oxygen total maximum daily load, which, as you've heard about Lake Champlain and all kinds of phosphorus issues on this side of the state, it's a nitrogen issue. So looking at Long Island Sound and what reaches the sound coming out of the Connecticut River. And you can see this has been going on since the 80s. It's been monitored since the 90s. And you can see that over time, particularly Connecticut and Massachusetts have done a lot of work, wastewater treatment plant updates, all kinds of things to lower their nitrogen discharges from places like Springfield and Hartford. And it is working. The levels are going down. What that means is now they're looking farther north and the contributions from Vermont and New Hampshire. So a lot of the strategies in the plan do address nitrogen getting into the tributaries to the Connecticut River. And this is kind of how it breaks down for this particular basin. 76% of that nitrogen is deposited atmospherically through that acid rain, the nitrous oxide that is coming into our region and dumping down on us. 3% is wastewater treatment plant discharges. Stormwater, basically the urban areas, contribute about 10%. Septic systems throughout the landscape is estimated to be about 7% and 5% from agriculture. So
What you say urban land? What is?
it's basically stormwater is what we're talking about, stormwater, yeah. So this is kind of this is the breakdown, and this is all based on USGS modeling of water quality data that we all contribute to. So these are the sources. So the upper left is the stormwater broken down by smaller watersheds. And again, it's the developed areas where you would expect the stormwater to be. The one on the top right is septic systems. So those are, again, where there's more development, there's more housing, more houses on septic systems. And then the lower one is agriculture. And you know, as we all know, agriculture is based in the valleys along our rivers where there's floodplains and flat fields. So that aligns with where we know a lot of the agriculture is in the basin. So we're already working with the agricultural community, the conservation districts in particular, and the Agency of Agriculture. So there's activity already in addressing some of those. So the plan focuses a lot on we'll be focusing a lot on the stormwater practices. We've done stormwater master planning and we'll do more of that. And we want to get the word out on personal contribution, you know, houses on septic systems and septic system maintenance and those kind of things. So people are more aware of maintaining that and reducing that nitrogen. So as far as the practices, the strategies that are in the plan, we're looking at developing those stormwater master plans where we haven't and implementing them where we do have them, working on those bacteria issues. There are 2 water bodies in Brattleboro that really need some help. And one is a small kettle pond and the other is that lower Whetstone Brook area. And we want to work with municipalities on private roads. A lot of lake communities have private roads that aren't regulated necessarily through the municipal road general permit, which all towns have to deal with. So we want to work with them and we've finally got some money to be able to do that. So we'll be focusing on that kind of outreach as well. Ag land is only about 3.7% of the basin, again, along the river valleys for the most part. So the things we are planning to do on that, we really need to address that impairment in Newton Brook and Vernon. We have an opportunity with new licensing on the Connecticut River that will hopefully help stabilize the bank. So we'll have some opportunity to work with riverbank landowners on buffers and those kind of practices, which we hope to be able to increase. Looking at wetlands that have been converted to other land uses, particularly a lot of ag fields that are not very productive are former wetlands. So looking at and identifying those and trying to get those back to wetlands. Conserving ag land along floodplains for flood resiliency is a very big concern. And then we also want to work with the ag community on climate adaptations for agriculture that will better use water supplies in drought areas, in drought times, and manage flood conditions to keep agriculture viable in our watersheds. We address all the water resources, rivers, lakes, wetlands, and forests, because as I said, forests are really important to water quality. So when we're looking at practices on rivers, we're looking at that reclassification option to provide that high level of protection in perpetuity, if we can get that through. We're looking always for implementing riparian buffers and floodplain plantings throughout the landscape. We are now doing what's called strategic wood additions, which when you say them, people go, what are you thinking? It's basically dropping trees into streams, not taking them out. And this is more like a headwater practice because that wood in the stream is essential for fish habitat, particularly, spawning and young fish, but it is also crucial for flood resiliency as it holds back water. It slows down the discharges from those streams. It gathers sediment that doesn't then come downstream. So there's a lot of benefit from that, as counterintuitive as it sounds. No, definitely not. It's usually on smaller streams. Those with boating probably aren't candidates.
You don't do it near culverts.
Yes, and we don't do it above culverts and bridges and things like that. We don't need to cause ourselves problems. Dam removals are always high priorities, all over. And then we're looking at how do we do river corridor easements and buyouts in those flood prone areas to both keep people out of harm's way and to reduce flooding impacts downstream. On our lakes, this is a picture of Raponda, where we restored this whole stretch of shoreline right against the road. The reclassification of Raponda, doing more of these type of shoreline practices on private property, getting landowners on board for doing that. We have a volunteer monitoring program on our lakes that folks go out all summer and take water quality samples. Some of the ponds don't have that, so we'd like to work with volunteers to get those going. The other programs that we have are called greeter programs where staff are at boat launches on our larger lakes where there's a lot of in and out to prevent the spread of invasive plants. And that's something that we'd like to get going on more of our lakes or increase the coverage on them. And Lily Pond is this pond in Vernon that is just this little gem. It's the only lake of its kind in the state of Vermont, and it has this incredible abundance of rare, threatened, and endangered species. So we'd like to get that protected. Wetlands, again, we restore the ones that are degraded, reclassify those that meet our class 1 wetlands criteria. We're looking at where are those wetlands that have been converted and where can we put them back to wetlands. And as of 2025, the wetland mapping for this region, actually the entire Connecticut River watershed in Vermont, will have new wetland maps, which will be much more detailed. So we'll be doing outreach to towns and conservation commissions and others on using those maps and getting that word out there that there's a new resource for it. On our forests, we're looking at that headwater protection. That's where our clean water comes from. That's where our water stays cold. Uh-oh.
I'm on that picture.
Oh dear. Well, maybe we can talk. There's undersized culverts and crossings everywhere on our landscape. So we'd like to identify those and get to as many of those as we can afford to. I love those. I've seen a lot of old boiler culverts, you know, cut the ends off and stick them in the stream. We do a lot of things fun. We also host it's called the Skidder Bridge Program, which are temporary bridges that loggers can rent from the Conservation District to do when they cross streams rather than having to run through the streams all the time. They can rent those bridges, so we'd like to expand that, make sure everyone knows about it.
Send me information on that.
Sure.
Things about it.
Could send Skidder Bridge info to Matt.
Things about it.
No problem. And there is a lot of legacy road erosion on our old logging roads and forest roads. So we want to look at that and assess that and try to do something about it. And there's always opportunities to do outreach on the accepted management practices for forestry and BMPs, both to the forest industry as well as landowners who want forestry done on their property. We've also added sections on climate change adaptation and social equity to our basin plans. So we're looking at reducing those flood hazards to communities at risk in those. So we have a lot of our mobile home parks are in low-lying areas and floodplains where they're consistently getting damaged. So we want to work with that and try to make things safer for them. We have some issues in the region about access to our waters, whether they're lakes or rivers, where there's water access or there's not enough water access for folks who can't afford to pay the state park fee every time they want to take their kids to go to first swim. So we'll be looking at those issues. Those social equity issues, we do have people who subsistence fish for nutrition. So what are the fish like that they are consuming? Are they safe? all those issues. So we'll be looking at those as well.
What resiliency program here? Project that proposed.
That is one of them that is definitely on the list and in the plan. All of these projects you can find in the watershed, the Clean Water Project Explorer on the Watershed Planning Program website. Each dot is a project that we have identified, and you can click on the dot. It'll tell you what that project is. You can zoom in on it and see if it's on your land. None of these projects are regulatory. We can't do anything with these projects unless the landowner is willing to participate. So if you're willing to participate and there's a dot on your property, we would love to hear from you. They're also listed by project in town in the major database. And you can see by those numbers that statewide, we've got probably over 12,000 of these projects identified across the state. And I know there's probably between 125 to 150 in this watershed. So you can go to our website, you can just look up Vermont Watershed Planning Program and you'll come to our website. The full plan is on the website for review. There's a story map about it that has a number of the maps that I just showed. And my contact information is there. So you can get to it from any of these. And this is my contact information. My card is also right here. If anyone needs my email address, it's the easiest way to respond. As I said, the comment period runs until the end of this month. And then I'll create the responsiveness summary. What I'm looking for tonight is, are there other water quality concerns that you have that I can include in the plan and we should be looking at? Are there areas that you know that are in really good shape that should be protected for the law? Where can we do that level of protection? What projects do you know about? I mean, we look around and I know the watershed pretty well, but I don't get everywhere. So I'm sure there are projects out there that I have no clue need to be done. So any information on that would be helpful. And does this reflect the community, the town's, needs and priorities for the waters in the region? So any of that you can offer and I can put in the plan and improve it before it goes final would be very helpful.
Right, Beaver Brook. It's not included in there.
We have we've begun to gather monitoring data on Beaver Brook. The volunteer monitoring has been done on it for a number of years now. Connecticut River Conservancy. So we know that there are high bacteria levels in Beaver Brook. So that's another one to add, please. Further monitoring on Beaver Brook. I don't get everything. I definitely need help. So that's a good point. I should make more note of further work on Beaver Brook for that. That would be really good.
Yeah, and I think, from now, which we referring to, of course, we all know, is that the select board does feel that it's a high priority for North Branch. Flooding that comes into this area, and all the lands that are next to all the floodways or floodplains. And of course, we're talking about going back from the town up through farmlands there and then up into the prairie property on East Norwood. That's the connection of those lands and flood.
Yeah.
And what can be done for the future and things like that. So we talked about conservation easements, we talked about floodplain.
Restoration.
Yeah.
Projected, maybe there are other projects that we might do with cooperation with landowners, and of course, landowners in that particular on that particular route, are looking for buyouts. As opposed to conservation of easements.
Yeah. Okay,
Do we have a,
I think we have your docs, is my guess.
good. Yes, I should. I'll check, but I will make sure that's in there.
we do have a question from online. Says, I'm interested in the protection of the water quality of Somerset Reservoir and the fish there.
Very good question. I know we have lake monitoring data, which again, I can pull up. I can't say I know it offhand. If you know anything you want to add to this, that would be great. And I'm sure we also have fish data, so I can pull that up on what we have on those lakes momentarily.
Manage to, level there.
Yes, sir.
You do.
Our operating license issued by the federal government.
Yep. So again, this is my contact information, please, and if you think of something next week or on the 31st of October, please go ahead and send it to me and I will incorporate all of that. Send me a picture of your costume with it, though.
So, midnight on Halloween, is that the?
That is it.
Okay.
And I will do the responsiveness summary in November. So with that, unless there are other questions on the slides, I'll close that and I can pull up some of the other stuff that folks have asked about. All right. Close, see what goes away. Screen sharing has stopped. All right, let me pull up the other stuff. I don't want to close that out. This always gets confusing. Just give me a moment. All this fun stuff loads. Uh-oh, where'd it go? There we go.
You're not sharing.
Do that, just. All right. There we go. So this is Somerset Reservoir. Can now see, good. So this being remote, some of this data takes a little while to load. So all the water quality data that we have, you can find on this, which is you can just Google ANR, Natural Resources Atlas, and this map will come up and it has all these incredible layers on things that you can see. And the first one, water quality monitoring, watershed management has all our water quality monitoring data. And so you can see these sites. Maybe I need to move in some. Internet connections. It's a lot of data, so it tends to load slowly.
It's still like radio.
And it doesn't seem to want to load.
Field phone system, which is very reliable.
There we go, it's starting.
More reliable than favorite top wires.
Exactly.
I know this is a lot, don't want to make everybody sick by doing this, but I want you to see where we are. These are our waterways. It's not looking like, there is one. So this is what the monitoring data looks like. the symbols for it. So these symbols are, they've monitored bugs. They have not monitored fish. There would be a little fish there. They've monitored habitat and they've monitored chemistry at this site. So if you click on that, so this isn't the lake itself. This one is, oh, here's the lake. So this has monitored Somerset spillway in the lake. And if you click on this link to the monitoring summary, it will bring up data. So you can look at this for any data, any of these crosses that appear, all of this data is available online. So here is a summary of the data. You can look at the details and what that means. So this is actually looking pretty stable. There has been an increase in chloride levels, which over time is not uncommon. We're having a lot of chloride. We use a lot of road salt in Vermont, all over, especially in mountainous areas. So all over the state, we have where some areas are becoming critically impacted by chloride. So we're doing a lot of work on that and working with municipalities and our road education program on minimizing or actually lowering the levels of chloride that we use on our roads. It's impacting aquatic habitat, it's impacting the bugs and the fish in our waters. So there is an increase. There's a lot of tributaries leading into Somerset. So there's,
That don't have those up.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point. Something we should look at. Yeah, not much is upstream. Yeah. It's all your land or national forest land. Yeah.
Huh.
We'll have to look at that. I can look into it and see. But the other parameters are all pretty steady.
So Marie, if someone is interested in looking at information about fish, or the status of them.
So we also monitor our lakes. And get this thing up. Okay, I just need to get rid of that. Now I can see what I'm doing.
Search lake trout, more knowledge. And if you can zoom in, I appreciate it.
That's the one thing no one ever gives me information on. You know, I want to do fisheries protection, but they will not tell me where their favorite fishing hole is. I cannot understand why. But they will not share it. Oh, monitoring. Sorry, I know, like I said, I don't want to make anybody sick, but this is how we find the data. So you can find all our lake data on as well. And if I'm in the right place,
Heidi says that I lost it. Like you're sharing. She said something about was it trout or legendary in Somerset?
oh, is that right? So here's all the lake data on Somerset Lake. Let me see if they have.
And she says dissolved oxygen needs to be very high for lake trout.
Absolutely. So this is I'm actually not even familiar with this report. This is a new report. So sorry about that.
What if you go to the scorecard?
Yeah, it's probably easier to see on the scorecard.
Wouldn't that kind of be a result of putting stuff in a brook that leads into a watershed for DO? Start with all that. Would that make an improvement?
It can, lake dissolved oxygen varies with temperature and with depth. So the surface usually has more because the waves churn it up and add dissolved oxygen. Down at the bottom, there's often very little. Cold water, just like the air, cold water holds more oxygen than warm water. So as the temperature decreases, that actually helps the dissolved oxygen. As the temperature warms, it releases dissolved oxygen. So it varies by season and it varies by depth. So this is a great way to look at the Vermont Lake Scorecard, has all of this information in it. So you can pull up any of the lakes that we monitor. Not every lake is monitored. So it will give you the water quality data. It's likely we don't monitor Somerset as much as we do others because it's a reservoir that is managed. So we have some data on it. Let's see if they have fish data. There are no invasives in it. So the ones that we do collect consistently are total phosphorus, because that's what causes algae blooms. How the Secchi transparency is how clear the water is, how far down. That's kind of what's growing in the water. If there's a heavy algae bloom, then you can't see far. If there's a lot of sediment getting in the lake, you can't see very far. So the deeper, the better. And then chlorophyll A is a test that shows how much is growing in the water, how much chlorophyll from plants is in the water. So when you, even a lot of times when you can't necessarily see green algae growing, it's there. You know, there are those things in the water, and this lets you know how much of that there is. When there's a lot of it, you know, you've got, you know, it's another way to look for those algae blooms and high nutrients if there's a lot of growth in the lake. I'm going to go to a different lake because, as I said, Somerset is not necessarily the best one to monitor, to look at.
No, I mean, I've always heard about E. coli, but now I'm starting to hear something about
Coliform?
yeah.
So E. coli, they're all both bacteria. They're gut bacteria from living things. E. coli exists in warm-blooded. Coliform exists in all. So even reptiles and amphibians and things like that. So when we're testing, different towns or different states have used E. coli bacteria as their criteria for bacteria. Some still use coliform. So they're both testing how much bacteria is in the water. And it's not the bacteria itself that's a problem. Bacteria, we have, it's part of us, right? We all have it in our guts, that's how we digest our food. We use the bacteria as an indicator for how much waste is in the water. And what comes with that are the viruses, the pathogens. So when you have a high load in the water of bacteria, you are more likely to have those other pathogens. So we use the bacteria to indicate the load and then make the assumption that the load of the bad stuff is also high.
So you mitigate, for drinking water, you would mitigate, coliform too.
Yeah. Oh, so there's more in the chat, it looks like, or it says I've just noticed it says 11 up in the chat. So I want to make sure I get to everything. I'm going to show you another pond so you have a better sense of what
So
this
hydrogen
is.
to put in temperature of streams and lakes is something to monitor. Tree cover is a big influence on water temperature of stream inlets.
That absolutely, and that's why there are a number of strategies in the plan to recommend and improve the establishment of riparian buffer plants. So that riparian vegetation not only holds the soil together with their roots and provides habitat, it also shades our waterways, and whether that's the full stream on a smaller stream, the edges on a larger river, or the edge of the lake shore, that is the cooler water. So the sun is not beating down on it and warming up that water. So that vegetation is crucial, and it's crucial for fish habitat because the leaves that drop into the water body seasonally are consumed by the bugs that we monitor, who are then consumed by the fish. So that's the food chain. The leaves come in, the bugs eat it, the fish eat the bugs. So that's an important piece. So it cools the water, it provides the food chain to feed the trout, and it holds the banks together. So all of those contributions of riparian vegetation are crucial to the whole ecosystem. So we have, and if there are locations on the landscape that you know of that don't have them, that need them, I'm happy to get a GPS point or an address. And we can put that into that projects database. So that would be great. So just to give you another sense of, this is Lake Raponda, which I said, you know, is a good water quality. And when we look at that water quality information, this is what you'll see on lakes that are more monitored. So again, we look at that phosphorus level, and the lower down on this chart, the better for a lake. So that blue area at the bottom is our cleanest, coldest, best lakes. And as it goes, the middle one, the whatever kind of blue that is, as long as it's not in the green, the lake is in good shape. So Raponda is a shallow lake, and it also has a lot of activity. And I suspect that that's why the Secchi transparency might be on the border there. There's a lot of boating on the lake. There's a lot, and it's shallow. So there's just a lot going on that lake. It'd be interesting because the phosphorus levels are not high, so that shouldn't, and the chlorophyll A is not high. So that's not because there's a lot of plant growth going on. So that's what you will see on this. And other lake information. There used to be fish data on this, and I'm not sure where that went. They used to list all the fish that have been identified in the lake. And I will look that up and see if I can't find that. That's, you know, just to give you an idea of our lake data, and how we're using that. There are other comments or questions, concerns that you have? What haven't I mentioned, or what have I missed?
Mention what you mentioned before. Exciting.
Oh, we were just talking about description of the Hermitage, which is called it's a private club. It's the Hermitage Members Club, which operates now a private ski area on ASAP.
Okay. In Wilmington, so I have to get my town borders straight.
Now, no, it's clearly,
Yeah,
with the exception of their lake, the lake.
Yeah.
Really small, which is
okay. I'll look,
on that, it's like,
yeah.
So there's another comment online, and let me just scroll back up a minute so I can see the top of it. You can have low E. coli in a body of water, but high amounts of staph and or strep in the water. This especially happens in stagnant water over 85 degrees. Strep and staph infect fish and people. I don't know if there's a way to test outdoor water for strep or staph. Is there any monitoring of the West Williams, Saxons, or Black River watersheds?
first part of that, I don't know of any testing for those two pathogens. I've never heard of any testing for those on surface waters. Certainly, obviously, drinking water gets that all the time. But I don't know of any on rivers, lakes, ponds. So that I know here, it is not happening. I've never heard of it, anyone doing that. The second part of that question, oh, and we do all this same monitoring across the state. So the West Williams Saxtons is Basin 11. I'll be doing that plan next. I just did the Basin 10 plan, which is the Black River. I just finished that one a year ago. So there's a new plan out, and again, you can go to our website and see that, and you can use all of this online data if you're interested in the water quality data. So that's all online as well. If there's nothing else, did I promise to pull up something up that I haven't pulled up yet?
I just told Heidi about the, Is It Clean website.
Oh,
from the
thank
Connecticut
you.
River Conservancy. So if you are familiar with it, so there's volunteer water monitoring on parts of the Deerfield, tributaries. And then also on the West Williams and Saxons rivers. And if you go to, Connecticut River Conservancy, Is It Clean? And just type that in, then you'll get to their site that shows all the different monitoring data on those.
Yeah, it's a great website. So they coordinate all the monitoring in this region and a lot of it all along the Connecticut and 4 states. So they put together this interactive website, so you can go to your favorite swimming hole and see whether or not it's swimmable.
If not,
If not.
The ones that people admit to.
Swim.
That's right. That is exactly right.
And generally, as you all probably already know, it's best to wait 24 to 48 hours after a rainstorm before go swimming in the waters, because E. coli levels tend to spike.
So, as I said, thank you for coming and participating tonight and giving your thoughts, and send me anything that comes up later. And I'm sure we will be in further discussions on a lot of things. So hopefully the plan is going to be done by the end of the year.
Excellent.
Thank you.
hang on, Tom.
You're welcome.
Golf
Oh,
All right.
very good, thank you.
Thank you for coming. It's a lot easier to talk to real people. Thank you, Heidi, for being on. I appreciate it.